Hello, rich girls. It's your girl, Amber. I'm so excited for you to hear today's episode. I have been getting so many requests for how do I handle this or how do I have this conversation? We've talked about boundaries before, but today we're bringing a whole new angle to it. And actually, I wanted to tell you a little bit about how the show's evolving because I don't know if you can believe this, but we're coming up on 1 year of Old Money. August 1st is our 1 year anniversary, which is insane. And we've really set the stage over the first year of going through, the basics of investing and the basics of savings and budgeting and all that kind of good stuff. But now it's time to kick it into high gear. And I'm going to start bringing some more experts onto the show. I want you to consider this your Ivy League old money education. So this series called the Ivy League, we're going to be bringing in so many more new experts to talk about more advanced topics. And this is our first guest. She is answering the questions that I cannot answer. And for my rich girls who are on a budget, you are going to love the feedback she gives you about weddings, about tipping. This episode is one for the books. So with that being said, if you have any requests of different topics, people, ideas, things you want to hear on the show, remember, you can always email me at oldmoneypodcast@gmail.com. You can send me a DM on Old Money Podcast on Instagram or visit our website, oldmoneypodcast.com. This show is for you. The show is for us. We are growing together. We are building together. So please let me know what you want to hear more of and enjoy this episode. Welcome to Old Money, a show dedicated to helping you build the trust fund you wish you were born with. Ladies who lunch, listen up. Life is not about looking rich. I want you to build a life and a legacy that feels rich in every sense of the word. If you're ready to stack cash, talk shop, and trade insider secrets, you're in the right place. These are the new rules to old money, so let's get after it. I am so excited to introduce today's guest of the show. The New York Times has called her the Emily Post of the digital age, and she's been featured on The Today Show, Dr. Oz, CNN, Inside Edition. They were even calling her Today, you guys, Access Hollywood, E-Network, and many more. And you're wondering, okay, she sounds like a celebrity. Who are we talking to today? She's not only a successful entrepreneur, our guest, Elaine Swann, is an etiquette expert. This has been so hotly requested from you guys, and I'm so excited to bring her to you today. Because for all of us that skip cotillion or get lost in front of a complicated place setting, Elaine is here to help us all. She is an authority on social etiquette and lifestyle practices, and she's the founder of the Swann School of Protocol. So she's bringing manners into the modern era. Hey, Elaine, thank you so much for joining us and welcome to Old Money.
Hello. So glad to be here.
You have such a presence. I have to start. Normally at the end, we say, okay, what's your Instagram? What are your handles? But I've been following you religiously on Instagram. You have the best content.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that. Thank you. I do try. I try to listen and pay attention to what folks want to hear about and provide them with the tips and the tools and the practices to help them in their everyday lives.
You talk about some things that I think some people might think are mundane, but some of them are so helpful. Just the way you mentioned when you're on the people mover in the airport. This is one of my biggest pet peeves. Can you please tell people how to use that?
Yes, absolutely. When you're on the people mover on the airport, you're traveling from one point to another. You are supposed to stand to the right and walk to the left. So as you're chit-chatting with your girlfriends, going on your girl trip and you're leisurely going along, let that boss business chick pass you on the left-hand side while you stand on the right. It's so important to do that.
I love this. Again, it seems like common sense, but to me, and I'd love to get your take on this, Elaine, it feels like some people think that manners are outdated or out of vogue. Why has this fallen out of practice?
You know what? I don't think it's fallen out of practice. What has fallen out of practice is the idea that individuals would go through a rite of passage of training, whether it's debutante or cotillion or what have you. That's the one thing that's not such a staple in our society. You know, it's not as popular as it was before. So that's what we're not seeing much of. But what we still see every day is people want you to behave properly. They want you to treat them with respect and decency. They want to be treated in the same manner. And folks actually want to show up the right way. I get so many people who say, how do I do this? Or how do I say this without being offensive or what have you? And so that has gone nowhere. Whether you are in line at the grocery store or online on your computer at work or video conferencing or posting something on social media, there is still some decorum that we have to practice in order to do this. So no, we don't want to see your surgery scars on social media.
Ew. I love, and that going back to social media, that's exactly why I love your content so much, because you pick up on so many of these day-to-day interactions in ways that we could really, have a little bit more education about how to properly manage ourselves or deal with others, whether it's in, a line at the store or on the freeway.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
one of the things, and I have to say too, I think one of the reasons why I love just the conversations around etiquette and manners so much is because I think you're living a lot of millennial women's dreams of just being an advice go-to, like an advice columnist kind of a way. I used to love reading Dear Abby. Oh, the best. What are some of the most common questions or common concerns people come to you with about manners and etiquette?
Oh my goodness. So at the top of the list, I get this all the time, is tipping. Tipping is,
Mm,
and that's happening right now, tipping in every way, form, or fashion, whether you're tipping your Uber driver or your person who's delivering your food, or if you're just picking up food that you have ordered, do you need to tip at the counter and you're getting it yourself? And then at the restaurant as well, whether it's large parties and that sort of thing. So tipping is one of the things that's at the top of the list that I can say for sure. And, the other thing, which is why I share so much on social media that I get from folks, is people really want to know how to communicate effectively, how to say something to someone without sounding like a jerk or being offensive, but they still want to get their point across. And it's always a sticky situation. And that warms my heart, because that tells me that people really are concerned about how they're showing up in the world.
absolutely. And I want to get into that effective communication because I think it's so important. But let's go back to tipping because that is a big conversation. So, what is the rule of thumb? Obviously, we know 20% is standard for most services. But like you said, what happens when you go to the coffee shop and get drip coffee or order pickup? Talk to us about that.
Oh my good. Let me tell you something, honey. I'm going to release you right now. Okay.
Tell
When
me.
it comes to those tip jars at the counter, etiquette would dictate that you are not required to leave a tip on the tip jar on the counter. When you go and you make a purchase and they spin that kiosk
Oh,
around
the
and it's
spin.
glaring and it's giving you options. And then there's the big no tip thing. And you feel that societal pressure to tip anyway, just because of what you might think the person on the other side feels or someone standing behind you. With great ease and confidence, I want you to push that no tip button
Wow,
and
I love
spin
that.
that thing right back around. You're not required to tip in that particular instance. And here's why. There's two things. Number one, I'm going to make it really easy for you. If you're standing and you're being served or picking up something, you don't need to leave a tip. If you're sitting and you're being served and tended to, then that's when you really have to start to lay out that tip. So standing, whether you're
Wow.
picking it up yourself or purchasing or what have you. Now, there are some instances where you might decide that you're going to leave the barista or the sandwich person, a tip or what have you. This is when the level of service is elevated. So for example, you have a large order or a very complicated order, or maybe the person behind the counter, you see them every day. They remember your order. They've got it for you before. Or someone just treated them really badly. And you think, you know what? Let
Yeah.
me just brighten your day and leave you a tip. Then you can. So here's the thing. The thing tips comes from the acronym. And this is many, many years ago when folks were in the Victorian era, when people were taking tea in gardens. A little tin was put out, and what was written on it was to improve prompt service. And people would put coins in this tin in order to have the service person bring the hot water from the house where it was being boiled to the garden where people were taking tea. And so if they put the coins in the tin, then people would rush, you'd get yours faster. So that's where it
Oh
kind
my
of started.
gosh.
And then it just started to, evolve from there. And of course, once it hit the Western hemisphere, you know
Wow.
how we take things and overdo it here in America, right? So it's evolved into what we see today.
That's so fascinating.
I do want folks to understand that servers in restaurants here in the US do not earn an average wage. And so their tips are their wage. The person behind the counter, they are earning an hourly wage regardless of whether you leave a tip or not. What's happening in this instance, and this is where I'm going to get on a soapbox for about 30 more seconds. What's happening in this instance is the proprietors of the establishments are offering their employees perks for working there, and they're putting it on the backs of the consumers to provide that perk. The second thing is the manufacturers or the distributors of those kiosk systems, make more money the higher the ticket sale
Right.
is. And so here you add on a tip, the ticket sale is higher, they're making more money again on the backs of the consumers. And so as consumers, we have to say, no, thank you. You're earning a living wage. I don't work here and I'm not your boss. Do what you're supposed to do. Pay them a higher wage and let me go get my, lafa coffee, whatever, matcha kacha, whatever.
I'm obsessed. Elaine, this is already my favorite episode ever. I know the audience can't see me right now, but this is probably not in great etiquette. My jaw has been dropped. My mouth has been open because you made it so clear. And I never thought about that. And it makes complete sense. Of course, the higher your ticket, the more that company makes on a percentage of running your bill. And the standing versus sitting, that's absolutely brilliant and such a great way to delineate. So thank you for breaking that down.
Oh, you're
I love that.
welcome.
And I want to go back to the other thing that you were mentioning too. One of your most commonly asked questions is like, how do we communicate effectively? And one of the things I wanted you to speak on is why that's even important. Why is etiquette important in your personal life or your professional life? We have an incredible community of rich girls, as we call them, and guys, rich girls and rich guys that are looking to improve their lives, make more money, live very well. How can etiquette and these practices benefit them?
The way it benefits them is because what it helps to do is elevate their professional and personal presence. When you treat people properly and when you carry yourself in a dignified manner, people will respond to you based upon the entire presentation. I often say that etiquette has so much more to do than how we use our fork and our knife at the table. It has more to do with how we make others
Mm.
feel. It has more to do with how we present ourselves. It has more to do with putting others at ease. And so when we can interact with folks and not leave scorched earth behind us, even in the face of conflict, you'll be invited to more spaces. You'll feel more confident whenever you are in a variety of spaces. When we look at folks who are, for example, what I like to call new money, meaning we're earners, we're earning our money, we're, as you said, our rich guys and rich girls, we're invited into spaces that are a little more elevated. And rather than be so preoccupied with, am I doing this correctly? Why not follow what I'm saying to do? Get those tools, make them part of your life and who you are as an individual so that this way you can navigate those spaces with ease. You can appear as though you are confident. I always say there's a difference between being comfortable and appearing confident. And so if you can just say, okay, I know what I'm supposed to do in this particular instance. And so I can continue on being myself and let my own individuality shine because I know exactly how to navigate this particular situation. I think that's the thing that's helpful. And that's the thing that will last as we continue to grow in our various spaces.
I love that. There's so many people that have written to me, and that's why I called on you because I'm not an expert in this, right? If I'm getting invited to a new country club or I'm going to a yacht show or I'm going to a more formal event, can you give our rich girls some tips on how to make a great first impression?
Certainly. First things first, bottom line, when you are invited, make sure you respond. Your RSVP, whether you are attending or not, oftentimes people get it mixed up and they think that you should only respond if you are attending. That's not the case. So first and foremost, always respond because that host, once they get that yes or no, then they go full into action to make an enjoyable and memorable experience for you. But that is centered upon you responding. And so that's one of the first impressions that's going to be left with that host. That's number one. Number two, showing up. I'm going to talk about being on time in one thing because this whole fashionably late thing, right? The other thing is what to wear. If you don't know what to wear, my recommendation is to go on a reconnaissance mission, look up the organization or the entity or the person, try to see if you can find older photos or people posting online. Do your research so that you can determine exactly what to wear so you're comfortable in it. Think about not only what your attire, but shoes matter most. Too often we think, okay, I'm going to get these, bad mamma jammas and I'm going to wear my Louboutins, and which, as we all know, those darn things,
Not comfy.
they're not comfy. So here you are trying to make a statement. And there's that. The other thing is, as far as attire is concerned, is just recognize that as you start to move in spaces where people have more disposable income, if you will, just don't do the label thing, and I'm sure you probably have had someone cover that, but that's a really important thing to do. Don't advertise your money on your body. Just, moderation is key. So make sure that you RSVP. Secondly, make sure that you're dressed appropriately. I always say choose modest attire. And when I say modest, go for the moderate sort of thing. Not too dressy, not too underdressed. Find something that works best for you. I'm not a fashion stylist. I'm not a wardrobe stylist, but what I do say is think about colors and silhouettes and patterns that you wear where you get lots of compliments. So if every time you wear this fuchsia blouse and you always get compliments, then that's my go-to color. So focus more on what's going to allow you to stand out and present better. All right. So now we're there. There was this thing that was so ingrained in many of us, arrive fashionably late. And so that the clock started getting ticking, further and further and further and further to where people are just late. When people host something, they typically have a start, a mid-time, and they have a finish. And so the fashionably late, do not arrive too early. That's number one, because then you can throw the host into a tizzy. You don't want to be there when they're still setting up or what have you. So don't arrive too early, but get there as close to on time as possible. Getting there, that doesn't mean, if it says that it starts at 6:00, don't get there too late. Respect the time of the individuals and what they've put on the invitation. So I think that's really important, to arrive as close to on time as possible and forget that fashionably late stuff. Get there so that you can, really connect with that individual without all of the hustle and bustle and everyone around
Right.
as well. And that's just really a great way to be able to network with folks and move up when there's less distractions.
Yes. That's a great point.
I mean, that doesn't mean that you're on the dot knocking on the door, but just be mindful
No, that's
of
a
that.
great point. If
So
you're there on time with the other people that are on time, those are the ones that are also cognizant of that kind of social cue and are probably great people to
yes,
network with. The fashionably
yes,
late people, maybe you don't need to chat with them as much.
no, be on
Yeah.
time. So leaving that great first impression, responding, wearing the proper attire and showing up on time, and then, leaving. Get the heck out when you see it's time to leave. And if you can say goodbye to the host or whomever has invited you when you're there, make that exit. So it's not just the greeting, but it's also your goodbye that matters in that instance as well.
Right. So, audience, that means no Irish goodbyes. Elaine, I'm sure you've heard of that term. Have you heard it?
I feel like I have. Explain it to me.
I don't know why it comes from, or it says Irish, and I hope it's not derogatory. It's just something that I hear in, social circles, but that means leaving an event and not telling anybody that you're leaving so that you can get
Oh,
out without saying goodbye to anybody.
right. Yes. So when we start to move in these types of circles, it's really important to say goodbye.
Mhm.
You say goodbye to the host or to whomever invited you. If you cannot get to that person and you need to send it through another person, I know that so-and-so is really busy right now. Could you please let them know I'm out of here? Thank you so much for inviting
Thank
me.
you. Yes.
So that, it's important for them to hear that. Thank you. Yes, indeed.
I love that. And one of the other things that I've noticed so often, and I think it's especially with Maybe people like I might have been this way when you're getting into a new social circle, you're a little insecure, a little nervous. It's very easy to do what? Go into your phone and start scrolling and not looking around. And I've really been practicing making an impactful entrance of putting my phone away, walking in with my head up and saying hello. And it still can be very intimidating. So do you have any tips for when you're at an event, breaking into a conversation and getting to know people?
Yes, I absolutely do. And this is one of the things that I talk about in a lot of my courses. That phone, yes, put it away, put it in your bag, wait until later to start taking photos and things like that. Don't allow your phone to babysit you while you're there. So when you walk in, make sure it is not in your hand. Do not
Yeah.
walk into the room with the phone in your hand. Make sure it's either in your bag, in your pocket, or what have you. So that when you enter the room, you step in, you pause, you scan the room to see exactly where you're going to go, and then you intentionally walk towards that area. Now, in terms of networking and connecting with people, let's say, for example, there's someone that's at this event and you really want to talk to them. You see them in the corner, they're talking with someone, and you'd love to enter into the conversation. It is absolutely acceptable for you to break into a conversation with folks. People are there to mix and mingle. And so if
Mm.
that's the purpose, then go ahead and do so. So firstly, pay attention to the body language of the folks who are in the group, whether it's a group of 2, 3, or 4. If they seem to be very huddled and closed in, then this is a social cue that would tell you that you are not welcome in that particular moment. Read the body language. All right. If it's open and it seems as though it's more casual conversation, then what you can do is approach the individuals and try to make eye contact with one of the folks who are there. The person that makes eye contact with you, you can smile, slight smile, nod your head, and then just begin to listen into the conversation. And so what I do is I say to get in sync with that person and using your body language and listen to the conversation. So as they nod their head, then you're going to nod your head too.
Mm,
If they
mhm.
laugh, then you chuckle, not creepy or anything like that, right? But if
Right.
they laugh, then you chuckle. And what tends to happen if you're welcome into that moment is someone will instinctively invite you in by using their body language. It could be where maybe their hand is up and they drop a hand down that's closest to you. They
Oh,
might shift their body language towards you a little bit or step to the side and open up the circle.
uh-huh.
They may glance at you. If they glance at you during the conversation, you're in.
Mm.
Once you do. Now you can stop in a moment if you don't know them both and say, oh, I'm Elaine Swann. So anyway, were you saying that last week on the news, the such and such, and just keep the conversation going? So that's one way that you can enter into a conversation where people are gathered.
That's so great. I think it's important, like you said, to be very present, listen, watch the cues. I hear a lot people say, well, I hate small talk. I don't know what to talk about. And we know that small talk is nothing to do with you. It's all to do with the other person, right? Could you speak on that?
Yes, small talk doesn't have anything to do with yourself. And I think that's why people get a little, they get a little frustrated, not frustrated, but they are intimidated by it because they feel as though they have to share so much about themselves, right?
Yeah.
So you don't have to do that. What you do as far as small talk is concerned is it doesn't always have to be you talking. Sometimes it's asking questions. So if an individual says something, listen to what they are saying and
Hmm.
then ask them questions based upon what they have shared. This way, the conversation continues to go. And then again, in one of my courses, I go over, how to really engage and pull out and say, oh gosh, clarifying really. So for example, I might overhear someone saying, last week I was in New York and I went here and I did this and I saw the such and such and I was waiting on a taxi cab and I ended up taking an Uber and you're listening. And so then your follow up question is, oh, were you in New York? Were you there for business or pleasure? Oh, I was there for business and da da da. And this is happening. And you're listening to them. And the next thing, and they say business and they say, I was over, near 30 Rockefeller. Oh, 30 Rockefeller Plaza. Is that over near such and such? So this is where you're asking questions. You're engaging, right? Before you go to events, do your homework, learn as much as you can about the organization. If it's an organization, if it's a person, then read up and try to find out if there's a person that's being honored or celebrated. Do what you can to learn about them so that you can pull through. I mean, that's a great opening line too. So how are you connected to Elaine Swann? What brings you to the event, or how did you learn about the event this evening? So small talk is not easy. Be ready to ask questions and listen. And then also just read the news. Read
Yeah.
the news and pay attention to what's happening, because small talk is not always about me. It's not
Hmm.
always about you. It's not always about the organization. Sometimes it's just mundane talk. And so, yes, it's acceptable to talk about things that are latest in the news. Of course, stay away from the stuff that we know about,
Right.
sex, politics, religion, blah, blah,
Yeah.
finance. But even celebrity gossip is open season.
Yes.
Even celebrity gossip is open season. So just be prepared with some topics that you can just share.
Yeah, I think I love that tip because I even get this way too in social settings. I get a little, especially if there's somebody I really want to meet, a little nervous, flustered. And at the end of the day, there's things like sports or culture that are the great equalizers. So we know where a lot of these high net worth individuals are hanging out. Maybe it's at the ski lodge, or maybe it's at a golf course or a hotel lobby, and there's sports on. If you know a little bit about the game or you see them interested, I always think that's a great in. My listeners know I'm obsessed with celebrity gossip and pop culture. So for me, that's always an easy one. I think that's a great tip. And one of the things you mentioned, Elaine, that I would love to have you speak on is those kind of taboo topics. And one of them that you mentioned, finances. Now, this is a money podcast, and this is something that we talk a lot about of communicating boundaries and talking about money. So, what are your thoughts on the discussions around money in a social setting, especially as it relates to maybe disclosing some boundaries of what you can afford or things you can do with your friends or things that are not in your budget? Could you give our rich girls some guidance on that and how to navigate those conversations?
Certainly, the conversation around money depends on the company that you're in. For example, if you're at a networking event and you're meeting people for the first time and you're just getting to know them and they don't know you, my recommendation is to stay away from money talk unless it specifically has something to do with the conversation at hand. For example, of course, this is Money Podcast, so folks are interested in everything from investing and spending their money in different things and so forth. And so, if the conversation goes in that manner, that's perfect. You can even, for example, let's say, for example, I was a guest speaker for a real estate investment group. And so everyone was there talking about their real estate investment. It was fine for them to say, hey, I picked up this great property. I did this. This is how much we invested. That has to do with the conversation at hand. If you're outside of that sort of thing and now you're at someone's, vacation home and it's a couples retreat or something like that, and you've all gotten together and you're just chit chatting, then this is where you want to avoid questions like, well, oh, this is your second home. How much did you pay for it? What'd you get it for? How's it market?
Right.
Oh my gosh, you
Yeah.
must have got this for what year did you move here? Oh, such and such year. Oh, you must have got it for a steal then, because that's when the real estate market tanked. So those are not the questions that you should be asking folks as far as money is concerned. And there's something else that I wanted to add in terms of conversations around money. Of course, not wearing it on your sleeve and almost sounding braggadocious as well in terms of your personal accomplishments. Be mindful. There's a difference between sharing a really great win and bragging. So you want to find that balance. Read the room, pay attention to body language. And if you end up sharing something that you feel fell a little flat and wasn't too well received based upon the body language, based upon the responses that you got, then that's an indication that you would say, okay, I should not share that one again. And sometimes we do have to make these little stumbles
Mm.
before we really are able to run and feel confident in these situations. And if you stumble, that's okay. Just recover, shift the conversation, change the subject, and keep it stepping.
I love that you say that. I feel like you're the queen of context. You're talking about body language cues and listening really well, being really present. And we all know when something goes like wah wah, falls
Yes.
flat, and you're like, that was weird. I think it's amazing what you said to give yourself some grace and also acknowledge it. Oops, I was maybe out of turn there, and
Yeah.
then move on. I think
Yeah.
that's beautiful.
It is. Yeah. It is. And even if you have to say it in that moment, I think it's okay too, because then that puts everybody at ease and they go, okay, yeah, that was weird. So let's just change the subject. You go, and people will see the human side of you and they can appreciate that and respect that. You might even find someone that really falls a little more in love with you in terms of, wow, that's a really great person, because that person kind of owned up to their little mistake at that moment. And I
Uh-huh.
couldn't have been that brave. Wow, I'm really impressed by you to say, you know what? I probably shouldn't have mentioned that. Let me change the subject. Anyway, how about such and such, such and such, and go from there. Be nice to yourself. Don't be so hard.
That is a perfect segue because the questions that I think we get the most of are how to navigate these uncomfortable moments of etiquette. And you mentioned this before of everybody wanting to have a positive interaction, but sometimes we have to set some boundaries or decline an invitation or decline the invitation to have a conversation that doesn't feel good to us. And I want to share with you, Elaine, something that happened to me recently at a business networking event. And I was introduced to the president of the organization who was a new president. So the old president, who's a friend of mine, introduced me to the new president. So this person is somebody that leads the organization that I'm within. And she grabbed my hand and she goes, "Oh, you're engaged. How old are you? When are you getting married? And are you having kids?" And I felt so caught because she's in a position of authority and somebody that I meant to impress. And I felt so uncomfortable that against my better judgment, I just answered her questions. But I needed to have something in my brain or a script that I could have gone to as a shortcut to exit that conversation gracefully. Please give me some advice.
Sure. Yeah, you could have said, well, honey, that's some secrets that you and I need to get together over coffee and I can give you all the dirty details.
That's great. That's great. Cause then that even brings us closer of getting an opportunity to meet with her again. Oh, I love that. A little bit
Yes.
of humor. Okay.
Yes. And then you can say, not in front of these people, but you and I have to get together and I can give you all the dirty details.
Oh, that's a great one. What happens if somebody starts talking about politics, for example? It's an election year. How do we gracefully navigate away from that conversation?
Yeah, sure. So this is one that I'm getting quite a bit right now because families are coming together and they don't all see eye to eye. And so that question is, how do I get out of this conversation? You just stop them right there. Use your words and your body language and say, I'm going to interrupt you. I would rather not talk about politics. Let's talk about something else that we can all enjoy because things are very polarizing right now. So let's talk about this. So anyway, last year, I was thinking about going whitewater rafting and keep it going, but use your body language to put your hand up and
Yes.
stop using the stop signal. So if someone dives into a conversation about politics and you're not comfortable and you want to stop them where they are, use your body language and use the stop signal in this manner and say, I'm going to interrupt you right here. I'd rather not talk about politics. Let's shift the subject, change the subject and talk about something else. So anyway, how about that? And you just go on and share whatever it is. That's something to where if you start to try to be polite and listen to the person ever so gently, that gives them a green light to continue on. And it's hard. So you have to embrace that awkward moment to tell the person very clearly, this is not, people are so passionate about this particular subject. It's not one that you can leave little breadcrumbs and hope that they get it and hope that they see. You have to say, I don't want to talk about this with a smile and shift and change the subject.
I love that. You're firm. You're making a statement, but you're not being aggressive about it and you're redirecting to something
Yes,
else.
not aggressive, but very firm and very direct. You
I love that.
must be firm.
Hey girlies, I have something for you. That's right. It's a gift, something for free, just to make you feel abundant and wealthy. I put together a super chic, free to download net worth tracker. It's super cute and pretty, and it gets the job done. Listen, I've been tracking my net worth since 2016, and since then it's grown by 677%. It's insane. And listen, it's not the net worth tracker that did it, but it is my attention to my big financial goals. And seeing it all on paper has given me the laser focus that I need to get really serious about my financial journey. Keeping track of your net worth is one of the most powerful things you can do to take control of your financial life. And I want to help you do that. So this is free to download. You can get it at oldmoneypodcast.com/networth. All one word. Drop your email. It'll get sent to you immediately. You just make a copy. It's in Google Sheets and you can plug all your numbers in to see what your net worth is today. Again, it's oldmoneypodcast.com/networth. If you have questions about how to use it, go back and listen to episode 35. It's called Tracking Your Net Worth. It's worth its weight in gold because that's what it really is. oldmoneypodcast.com/networth and let me know what you think. What about this one? This is another question. We have these amazing women in our community that are working so hard, saving their money, and yet It's a beautiful thing, but all of our friends seem to get married at the same time. And those bridesmaids invitations never stop coming. And we know that's a big expense. Can you advise our rich girls on how to navigate declining something that's so important to a friend because it might not be in your budget?
Sure. You first of all, you have to give them a direct no. So don't beat around the bush. Say to the individual, thank you so much for thinking of me, wanting me to be part of your special day. I'm going to have to decline being a bridesmaid in your wedding. However, I will be there to support you. And then you can do a couple of things. You can either offer to participate in the wedding in some other way, maybe by being a hostess or greeter or something to that effect or what have you. That's one thing you can do. Or the other thing you can do is just offer to help her along the way or do something special with her along the way. However, I do want to celebrate you myself. And I'm referring to this one in terms of going, let's say, for example, going on the girls trip,
Right.
bachelorette trip. I cannot go on the bachelorette trip. However, I would like to spend some time with just you and I. Let's get together and just have a moment where whatever it is. And then you choose what fits for you. It might be just a wine night at your own house because you can afford that bottle of wine, or that bottle of wine was in a goodie bag that you got from some event. You got some, whatever it is, right? Or it's a coffee date. It's a nail date. It's whatever that works for your budget. And this is the thing that I think is so important. And I talk about money so much each day, even when it comes to tipping and holiday tipping and so on and so forth. There's a whole new standard. But I really think it's important for folks to live within their means and not try to live outside of their means in order to show up and please someone else. And the reason why is because you can, and you know this, develop resentment because here it is, you've made a choice to do
Yeah.
something and then you're paying for it years later because you put everything on a credit card that you're now paying, years later, and you shouldn't have done that.
That's such a great point. And then I'm learning so much from you, Elaine. And one of the things that I'm seeing as a pattern is even in the conversation about politics, you stop it, you're firm, but then you're redirecting and giving another option to continue the relationship with that person. That's not something I've considered before. It's, I can't participate in that part of it, but you are important to me. So can we do this together? And always that pivot is really graceful.
It is. And that's the thing. It's the power of the pivot. And that's coming up in my new book, The Power of the
Yes.
Pivot. I have to come back and talk about the book.
Yes.
And so it's the power of the pivot. And the pivot is to take the attention off of the icky kind of thing and really move it into what's really important in that moment. And what's really important in that moment is maybe that relationship that you have with your girlfriend, or maybe it's the relationship that you have with that family member that you love them much, but maybe you don't see eye to eye as far as politics are concerned. It's that coworker. I actually just did a post today where I talked about how to deal with a coworker when there's conflict and there's some sort of problem that's happened and all they're doing is focusing on the problem. And the pivot is saying, for example, I understand your perspective, but why don't we come up with some ideas on how we can, resolve this issue as opposed to kind of focusing on the problem itself. And so don't focus on the problem, focus on solving it.
I love that. And that's the last real topic I really want to get into. We have so many small business owners, entrepreneurs, corporate cuties, like everybody everywhere is working for a living. And those are some of the hardest boundaries to set and enforce, right? So let's talk about work, a little bit of professional polish. First of all, how do you deal with somebody who's maybe a superior in your work and violates your boundaries of time or attention? How can you handle that?
With work, one of the first things you have to think about in terms of boundaries and time is you can make a shift at any point in time in your career journey. So let's say, for example, you came in, you wanted to be impressive. You answered every email, every phone call, everything you volunteered to be on every team, every assignment, every project. And work is now spilling over into your everyday life and there are no boundaries. Start today. Start scaling back. Emails, do not answer emails in the middle of the night. Don't answer them on weekends. Don't answer phone calls, texts, and Slack and everything else. Put your boundaries as far as your time is concerned. Start to do this and start to practice it so that people can see, okay, golly, after a while, no, it's Saturday. I'm not going to get a message from her. If an individual asks you, let's say, for example, to stay late, there's a way to say no and keep your boundaries. So it's an on your own terms no. I like to say it's on your own terms. So this is where, can you stay late? Can you do this? And your answer is no. However, what I
Pivot.
can do is help out in this way. At this point in time, this is what I can do that, but I can't say I have to leave at a specific time. So just doing that, it's challenging when you have superiors who are asking you to go beyond this. And that's where you may end up having to have conversations, especially depending on your work role. If you're an hourly employee, then they really can't do that. Now, if you're not and you're exempt, that of course makes it different when you're salaried, because then they expect, but that does not mean that you have to work 24 hours a day and be accessible. So emails, phone calls, Slack, text messages, things like that. Stop answering those things during the off times of the day, and then start putting it back on folks and saying, no, I can't. I'm leaving. No, I can't. And what happens is, for those of us who maybe don't have children, they think, oh, okay, well, you don't have any kids that you have to go home to, so I'm just going to throw this
Right.
on you. And the answer is no, because I have a life too. Don't feel like you have to explain and go into detail as to why you're not. No, I'd like to end my day. My work day ends at whatever time. And then you say, whatever it is, my work day ends at 5 o'clock. So what I'll do is I'll finish up and get everything I can get done before 5, and then I'll pick back up tomorrow.
This is so key. Again, you're pivoting, you're giving another option, which is so brilliant. But also, as you mentioned, with the friends and the destination weddings, destination bachelor parties, if you are a people pleaser, that resentment isn't going to make for a healthy relationship in the long term.
It's really not. No,
Yeah.
it's not. And I'm watching someone go through this right now, and bless her heart, all of her friends are having this milestone year birthday, and they're all one right after the other because, of course you're friends. And so
Yeah.
she's been to a destination birthday and at this birthday, so many different things. And I see what she's doing as far as her finance is concerned. And I'm saying, you know what, by the end of this year, she's really going to be upset with herself because she really overextended herself financially. And it's just not the best thing to do. So in some instances, we just have to say no, and then let that person know that you can celebrate with them in a manner that fits your budget.
I love that. It's so important as we're all striving towards our goals and trying to maintain our relationships, and also balancing that wanting to impress your superiors at work with maintaining a life. I think that if you come with an approach, an etiquette forward, modern manners approach, and you're looking for a win-win for everyone, I think that's going to be a huge success.
Yes.
So before we let you go, Elaine, we always ask our guests what we call our rapid fire rich girl questions, where we get to learn a little bit more about you. Are you down?
Ooh, okay. I'm ready.
First thing that comes to mind, where's your favorite place to vacation?
Anywhere on a beach.
Love. Me too. I'm a lay down type of vacation girl.
Yes. I don't want the hiking, the excursions, all the, if I'm sweating because the sun is glistening on my body.
I love that. What about this one? Best investment you've ever made?
Oh gosh, the best investment I ever made was in myself to launch my business and start my business. I am so delighted that I have celebrated this in June of 2024. I celebrated my 21st year in
Oh my
business.
gosh.
I launched my etiquette business in 2003. In 2017, we launched a licensing program for the business. So now we train other people and license them to operate their etiquette consulting business. So we have over 30 independently owned and operated Swann schools throughout the country. The best investment I made was in myself.
You are such a queen. I was going to ask you about Swann School of Protocol at the
Oh,
end, but
that's
since
okay,
we're here,
honey.
let's talk about it now. Tell us about the Swann School of Protocol.
Yeah, sure. The Swann School of Protocol is an etiquette training institute. We provide courses and classes for children, teens, college students, and adults. In addition to that, we have a certification program where we train other individuals so that they can get their certification to teach others for etiquette. We also have a licensing program where we train people, they get their certification, and we license them to operate as a Swann School of Protocol. And as of today, we have over 30 independently owned and operated Swann schools throughout the country, and we're growing.
Take notes, rich girl. Talk about making an empire. I love this so much. And we're going to get to where everybody can find you at the end. So, a couple more rich girl questions for you.
Sure.
What is your guilty pleasure?
Oh, my guilty pleasure is celebrity gossip. I have to say that.
Me too. What are you into right now?
I know everybody's business,
I
right?
love that.
You know what? I know this is so crazy. I actually took a little bit of a turn. I don't know why I became so just enamored with this poor little girl. Little girl. She's a young woman, Halle Bailey, who played the Little Mermaid.
Gorgeous, obsessed,
I don't
obsessed.
know. Something came across my screen after she did the Little Mermaid about, I think she's pregnant. And I tell you, I got so invested in that thing. And she's not even my age group, but I don't know why I got so invested in it. And I just was scrolling. And every time she came out, I was looking, I was like, I think she's pregnant too. There was this whole conspiracy thing. Eventually, of course, she announced the baby. So that was really fun for me. And I don't know why. I just kept following that. And I looked at every TikTok they did and everything. So it's so funny. So there's that. And then a lot of divorces right now that's happening, which is really interesting. And then the other thing I love is Real Housewives of Beverly Hills.
Yes, you're
That's
speaking
my
my language, Elaine.
favorite.
Oh, yes.
I love Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. I can tell you everything about everybody and every conflict that has come on. Yeah.
Okay, so tell me this. If you were stuck in an elevator with one cast member from Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, who would you want it to be?
Oh, if I were stuck in an elevator. Well, I would say Kyle.
I think that's a great choice. She
Well,
knows
because
the
initially
tea.
I almost said Lisa Vanderpump, and this is why. And that's why I switched. I almost said Lisa Vanderpump because of her business acumen and that she was able to, I think, never mind, forget Kyle, Lisa. And the reason why is because of what she's done with her business,
Yeah,
between the restaurant and then she took that and turned it into a show and then she took
right.
that into, and so on and so forth. So yeah, I'd love to talk with her and find out what she did, how she did it. I'm all about the business. Yeah. So I know she's not currently on the show and she's kind of a villain and everything, but I guess once a housewife, always a housewife.
I couldn't agree with you more. And she's one of my favorites as well. And the same approach, if we were going to go to like New York, even though Bethenny is a little crazy, I would want to talk to her all day long.
Okay. Can I tell you my 6 degrees of separation
Give
with
it to
Bethenny
me.
Frankel?
I
First of
need to
all,
know.
she's also one of my favorite people. First of all, I love business. I'm a businesswoman at heart. The product that I sell is everything etiquette, but I'm building an empire.
Yes, you are.
And the empire that I'm building is not just in the etiquette space, but there's a whole nother brand that's coming along, which is going to be the Elaine Swann brand. So you'll be able to use things in your home
Oh my
that are,
gosh.
yes. So that's what we're working on now. That's our next stage. So I love Bethenny Frankel.
Uh-huh.
Prior to Bethenny Frankel, one woman I admired was Martha Stewart.
Love her.
She's been an icon for me for years. So if you think about my lifestyle brand,
Yes. Oh, yes, I'm ready. I'm
Black
so
Martha
ready.
Stewart.
I love that.
Okay. So here's my 6 degrees of separation story with Bethenny Frankel.
Let's hear it.
I love Martha Stewart. She went to jail. She got out of jail. She did one season of The Apprentice. And I don't even know if anyone
Right.
remembers this, but she did one season.
I need to find that. I've never seen it. Okay,
It's
tell us
okay.
more.
Bethenny Frankel was on that show. So here's the thing. I went to audition for the Martha Stewart Apprentice. I knew it was coming up. I went to NBC Studios in San Diego, California. I slept on the ground at night the night before so
Stop.
that I could be the first in line to be interviewed by the producers. I did really well in that interview and they called me back for the next round and the next round and the next round. And I went for months. They were picking 16 people to be on this show. I made it to the top 25 people in the show. I went through everything that you need to go through to get on a reality show. We were sequestered at the final end of this. We were sequestered in a hotel in LA. I met with Mark Burnett. We did psychological examinations, physical examinations, the whole thing. The final thing is they put us all in the room with Mark Burnett and we all had to kind of clamor and talk and so on and so forth to try to get our, spot in the show. I was one of 25. They were picking 16. They did not pick me for that show. They picked Bethenny Frankel for that show. She was one of those 16 people. She ended up doing the show. She did really well. She did not win. She came in second place, but she is the most successful Martha Stewart person. So that she did Martha Stewart Apprentice before she did Housewives of New York. And so I just have watch Bethenny and like there's this kindred thing. I cannot wait to have a conversation with her. But
Yes.
I was there in the room vying for that. Of course, I didn't know who she was. And there was, 25 of
Right.
us, right? But she made it on the show and I didn't. But I followed her career ever since then. This was back in 2005.
I'm captivated by this. This Bravo history is the best to me.
Yes.
And I have to agree with you. There's something about, I remember the episodes where she was in the grocery store selling her cookies, trying to give samples, and people are like, where's the ham? And she, just
Yeah.
her growth trajectory has
I
been
love her.
incredible. I respect
She's a
her.
smart businesswoman.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Oh, that's incredible.
I'd love to be stuck in an elevator with her.
Totally.
Yeah. Oh, we'd have great conversation.
Okay, so it's going to be you, me, Lisa Vanderpump, and Bethenny Frankel in an elevator somewhere. This sounds like my dream.
Exactly.
Oh, I love it. Two more rapid fire rich girl questions for you. Advice you'd give to your 21-year-old self.
Oh gosh. You know what? Forget the boys and and focus on business and choose business over boys. I think at 21, I had already had my business at the time, but I think a lot of the things that I was doing and the choices I was making, not the etiquette business, I had a different business, and it was centered around a boy. And yeah, I would say forget the boy and focus more on your business.
Love that advice. I might make that a quote card for social media. Last question. What in your life makes you feel the wealthiest?
My health. My health makes me feel the wealthiest. I am so thankful that I am healthy. I have no physical ailments. I am just absolute clean bill of health. I'm nothing, no physical ailments, no health issues, nothing. And not sure when this is going to air, but by the time it does, I would have celebrated my birthday. And when you look at those social media posts, I am today 56 years old. I will be 57 on my next birthday, which is this Saturday.
Happy birthday. You're a Cancer too?
Yes.
So am I. That's why I loved you so much.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. So my health is my wealth. That's definitely my
That's a
health.
beautiful
I'm
answer.
so thankful.
And I'm so thankful that you took the time to come on the show with us today. Elaine, I think the rest of the rituals are going to freak out and follow you on social media and devour everything that you post, just like I have. Where can everyone find you? Social, websites, all the things.
Certainly. You can find me on any social media platform, Elaine Swann, and that's Swann with 2 N's. And my website is elaineswann.com. And if you want to learn more about our etiquette program, you can always visit swanschool.com. That's it.
Amazing. Thank you again. And for our listeners, thank you so much for joining us today. We'll put all of Elaine's details in the show notes so you can really easily tap over and find her, follow her, and up your etiquette game to get to the next level of your life. Thank you so much and have a great day. Feeling rich? I hope so. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Old Money. If you have questions you want answered, email me at oldmoneypodcast@gmail.com or hit us up on social. We are at Old Money Podcast and I am at your service. If this episode spoke to you, inspired you, helped you, if you took a single note, it would mean the world to me if you could please just take a minute to rate and review the podcast. And if you're not doing so already, subscribe. And if you have friends who like getting rich, please share this episode with them, even if it's just on your Instagram story. And I'd love you more than Jeff Bezos loves Amazon Prime. Thank you so much, and I will talk to you on the next episode. Remember, I'm not your lawyer, I'm not your tax professional, and I'm not your financial advisor. The content presented in this podcast is intended to entertain, educate, inspire, and support listeners in their personal and professional development and does not constitute business, financial, or legal advice. In addition to that, this episode may contain paid endorsements and advertisements for products and services.